Hey guys, today I'm going to show you around the last bike in the stable, and that is the 2022 Triumph Rocket 3 GT. Now this bike is just a muscle cruiser in every sense of the word. It is 2,500 cc's or 152 cubic inches of power. It's an inline 3. It is pulling 165 horsepower, 168 foot-pounds of torque. It is the biggest production motor in existence, and it is a fantastic bike, but it's also kind of impractical. So let's take it for a spin. Let me tell you all about it, and finally the garage is full.
Alright guys, I've been very excited to launch this bike and tell you about this bike. This is my 2022 Triumph Rocket 3 GT. So this bike just screams power, and let's go for a ride and I'll talk about it. So if you are in the market for a ultimate power cruiser, muscle cruiser that is just premium in every way, look no further than the Triumph Rocket 3. This thing has everything, and it is maybe the most impractical bike there is out on the road today. So let's talk about it a little bit. Oh boy. So let's start with the fact that this has the largest production engine of any motorcycle on the road today. Now I know some of you are probably going to start talking to me about Boss Hog and all this other stuff, but that is not a production motorcycle. Those are custom made with, I think, a Chevy small block. But anyway, this is a 2,500 cc, or I don't know, I think it's 156 cubic inches for all you Harley and Indian fans. This thing has 168 foot-pounds of torque and like 165 horsepower. So for a bike like this, that is a lot of power. So I'll give you a little backstory on this bike. Last year, you know, I was riding the ZX-10. One of my best friends is, you know, recently got into motorcycling. He has no interest in sport bikes. And his wife started riding. My wife rides. And you know, I was feeling a lot of pressure to move on from the sport bike scene. So I looked around. Actually, I sat on this bike, or a bike like this, when we bought my wife's ZX6. Triumph made this bike. It was a 2,300 cc version of this bike in the early 2000s, and it's been that way. You know, it was that way for a long time. It was much more traditional looking motorcycle. But anyway, I digress. This is a very unique sounding bike. It's a 3-cylinder bike. It has premium everything. It has a quick shifter. It's got Bluetooth. It's got this really great display right here that really has a lot of information packed into it. It's got riding modes. It's got dual Brembo brakes up front. It's got Brembo brake. Wow, try to say that fast. It's got Brembo brakes in the back. It is a shaft-driven bike. There is literally no maintenance to be done other than to change the fluid every so often. It's got Brembo reservoirs. It's got, I mean, you really have to just sit on one of these bikes to understand how premium everything is on it. Everything is very solid. The attention to detail on this bike is amazing. They run all the wiring in the bars. There's everything's just got a real premium feel to it. Even the buttons feel premium when you touch them. They have just a great click to them. I really love these really wide set mirrors. You have very good vision all around you. But really, the truth is, I just love the way this bike sounds. I love the way this bike looks. That's about all there is to it. This thing sounds just so badass. And there's nothing like it on the road at all. I mean, I have never seen a Rocket 3 in this town besides mine. You know, granted, this is not a huge town or anything, but, you know, as I said with my wife's bobber, you know, there's no dealership. The closest dealership is 60 miles away. But I suppose the main point of this bike is just to be a badass bike, you know. I think the closest thing out there to it right now, there's really nothing even close to comparing it to, but I guess the closest thing I can think of is the Harley Breakout. It is a single-sided swing arm also, which just looks cool. Triumph and their paint is just amazing. I'll get you some close-ups of the bike here while I'm riding, but the truth is, this bike is super comfortable to ride too. It's got forward controls on the GT model, I think, but you can move them. It's got 3 different positions you can ride on the forward controls, and then if you get mid controls, it's got 3 different positions you can put them in there. I removed the sissy bar and the pillion from this bike. I wanted the forward controls of the GT, but I really like the look of the R model. And this thing just takes off like a rocket, as its name would suggest. Yeah, so the quick shifter is up and down. This thing just crackles and pops like crazy. It did that even with the stock exhaust, so don't think anything's wrong with it. Even with the stock exhaust, this bike pops and crackles. It's just the way the motor's designed. But I'll tell you what, when I removed the catalytic converter from this thing, that thing weighed at least 30 or 40 pounds. It was just huge. When you get on this bike, it can pass in any gear. I'm cruising at 80 miles an hour right now. I know this thing will do well over 100 miles per hour, no problem. But yeah, it's not really what this bike is designed for. Right now I'm catching quite a bit of air. This bike does have a fair amount of vibration to it. You know, it's a big motor. It's an inline 3, so it's probably has some balancing issues. When you grab a handful of throttle on this bike, though, it just goes. It's got Showa front and rear suspension. It's got a monoshock, obviously. But this bike is just, it's really its happy place is just cruising down the avenue and just being a badass. This bike definitely gets a lot of looks. Now, this bike handles really well. It's very, you know, for being such a heavy bike, it's pretty nimble. The front suspension is in an upside down arrangement. I mean, it's basically got sport tuned suspension, but it's, you know, that's not its job. You know, I don't really think it's, you know, something you want to go tearing ass down a track with, but I mean, you could. But really, it's just an example of what Triumph could do if they just said, let's just make the biggest, baddest bike we can come up with. And they really did. This bike is pretty amazing. You know, the truth is, though, it's not, you know, I think when you put bags on this bike, it really destroys the look of this bike. So I mean, you can outfit this bike with, you know, a front fairing or big ass windshield, or you can, you know, you can put bags on it and tank bags and a rear rack and all this stuff, and you can turn it into kind of a touring bike, and it's got comfort like a touring bike. I've ridden this bike as many as 300 or 400 miles in a day and no discomfort whatsoever. It doesn't hurt my back. It's just, you're just in a great seating position. And but anyway, back to the point, you know, it's just not practical in any other sense. You have to make it practical, and then to me that destroys the look of the bike. So now that I have the Indian, which is, you know, kind of two bikes in one, and when I just want a power cruiser, I can just throw the trunk off of it, and, you know, I've got a great bike for that. And I've got storage, and I've got a radio, and I've got all this stuff that makes a ride a lot more comfortable and practical, and it doesn't take away from its looks in any way. So, you know, despite how much I love this bike, I really love this bike. It just, I don't know if I'll ever ride it, you know. I think I'm to a point now where it's like, if it doesn't have some kind of storage on the bike, I don't know, really loses its appeal. And coming from sport bikes, you know, I got really tired of always having to wear a backpack and all this other stuff that needed to go on. But I don't know, this, you know, it's not that bad to put a backpack on and go for a ride, you know, if you're going to go for a distance ride, but I'd really rather just have bags, and hard bags to boot. It would be a lot better. So guys, what do you think of this bike? I know you're gonna have a lot of questions, and you're probably wondering why I even bought this bike, but the truth is I just bought it because, you know, it's a vanity bike. It has power for days, it has torque for days. It's very unique, and you get a lot of conversation started with this bike. So tell me what you think about it in the comments. Ask me whatever questions you want to ask me. I think now that all the bikes have been introduced, I can get back to just making some videos, and I look forward to that. But most of the content is really going to be focused around the Indian. So there you have it, guys. I'll look forward to the conversation about this bike.
So there you have it, guys. The 2022 Triumph Rocket 3 GT. Fantastic bike, super comfortable, attention to detail through the roof, premium everything, super fun to ride, super fun to listen to because it's just got a unique sound. But I'm not quite sure I'm gonna ride this bike that much because the Indian Pursuit is just such a complete bike. So I'm very interested to hear your opinions on this. Please tell me, do you think I should keep this bike? Do you want to see more videos on this bike? Should I trade it for something else? Should I just get rid of it entirely? Really curious to hear what you have to say. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel, it helps us out a great deal. And hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any future content. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching.